All right, we are live.
Like 12 order, City of Lake Worth Beach Historic Resource Preservation Board meeting, Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Elaine DeRisso,
Present.
Laura Devlin,
Here.
Bob Dorenzo,
Here.
Nadine Heights, Ed DeVoe, Ed LeBlanc.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Any additions, deletions, approval?
No.
We need to do pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need an approval of the minutes from the March 13th, 2024 meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 13th, 2024 HRPB meeting.
Like second? I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Swearing in of staff and applicants.
Not necessary for this meeting.
Okay, all right, proof of publication. Fine, any withdrawals at the point? No. Okay, for any board disclosure?
Not necessary. All right. This is ordinance 2024-05, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, section 23.2-39, affordable workforce housing program, and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Well, it's William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. You might have some questions, but I don't know which ones of you were on the board when this came through a couple of years ago to be approved, but it does facilitate a mechanism to do additional density for projects which provide affordable housing, and also any projects that participate in the Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program, which are projects that are over 2 stories, also have to provide a level of affordable housing. When this came about, and then probably a year before, there were questions asked about how to get additional density for like accessory dwelling units, and also in the CRA, because the CRA has a very community redevelopment agency of Lake Worth Beach, has a pretty significant push for affordable housing within its boundaries, and have received quite a bit of money from the federal government and other entities through their housing consortium and group to build those. And there's been interest in the city commission to utilize some of the vacant lots that we have, when we're not that very many, to build affordable housing. There was also interest in accessory dwelling units and how to facilitate those in areas that don't now allow them, or would allow them where they may not be allowed currently due to density restrictions. And so this ordinance provides a couple of changes. One is to clarify some language that was a little bit misleading before. And the other is to facilitate that if you would like to do an affordable housing unit, right now you can get a density increase of 15%, but it often ends up with only a bit of a unit. So this ordinance would allow you to get at least one additional unit out of that 15%, but would have to be deed restricted as required under the program for 25 years. And then based on the type of unit, the income restrictions would apply. What this also is proposed to do is that lots of record in the CRA could each get one additional unit. And in other areas of the city, a parcel could get at least one additional unit if it's an accessory dwelling unit and deed restricted. The Planning and Zoning Board had a couple of questions. They had a little bit of concern about this being across the entire city, and did ask staff to put together for the City Commission a map that shows where the future land use has medium density residential, but a single family residential zoning. And that's a few blocks north of the single family, 2-family districts, both north and south of downtown. And so it's not the entirety of the SFR districts, but it's a portion of them. Many of those are in the historic districts. And so we will carry that recommendation forward to them. I don't recall the other suggestion that they had. Okay, and so, and the CRA already is working with a number of entities where we had this little half of a unit, and it really would facilitate the production of affordable units or workforce units throughout the city. So we're here to answer any questions you might have, but that's the extent of what's being proposed here under this particular ordinance change.
This is only cleaning up language, correct?
Well, the first part is cleaning up language, and the second part is allowing that additional unit. Because under under the Florida statute and comp plan, you can't round up density. So it's say that you've got a project that has 4 units, and if you increase it by 15%, you get 0.6. Well, this would allow you to get to 5 versus just 4.6, as an example. But that additional unit would have to be deed restricted.
William, what's the correlation between increasing density and looking at issues of parking? Is there any correlation?
Well, there is, in the sense that you would have to meet the parking requirements. There is a parking reduction available through the program, but this does not change the height, bulk, building lot coverage, or volume that is allowed on a lot. It just allows you to cram possibly an extra unit in the area that you're allowed already.
And the accessory dwelling units are not supposed to be short-term vacation rentals?
Well, if it's deed restricted as affordable, by definition, it cannot be a short-term rental. Has to be affordable or workforce. So it would have to have a tenant.
Question.
There was a section I was reading, I can't recall actually if it was this one or the next one, that said that a guest house is not an ADU.
Guest quarters are not necessarily an ADU if they don't have a fully functioning kitchen. So that's where we have guest quarters, granny flats, guest suites all over the city, but unless they are allowed to, unless they have a kitchen, they're on a dwelling unit. And in the SFR district, which is almost 65% of the city, that guest facility cannot have a kitchen. It can have a refrigerator, a microwave, or a sink. It cannot be leased out separately, and it is not considered a dwelling unit.
The difference between a kitchen and a non-kitchen is like a cooking stove?
Cooking stove and an exhaust system, and you must have hot and cold running water.
Thank you.
Good. We have no public comment. Get a motion, please.
I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in ordinance 2024-05.
Before you have a second, do you want to consider the same additional recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, or are you okay with it moving forward with a recommendation to cover all the SFR district?
Can you elaborate on that?
I'll say that.
The Planning and Zoning Board, the future land use map has different densities in it, and some portions of the SFR zoning districts have a future land use of medium density, which would allow single family, 2-family 14, multifamily 20, and I think multifamily 30. And so in those areas where the future land use would allow a zoning change to have a higher density, the Planning and Zoning Board had a preference that that would be the area where this would apply and not necessarily the whole SFR district.
All right, so can we say that we'd also like to follow the planning and zoning recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we got an amended motion. Can we get a second, please? I'll second. I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I got here late.
You want to abstain?
I'm gonna stay. Yeah. I got here late.
You gotta say yes or no.
Yes.
All right, so we get out again, so passes unanimously. All right, on to ordinance 2024-06.
This is ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, article 1 general provisions, division 2 definitions, section 23.1-12 definitions, article 2 administration, division 3 permits, section 23.2-28 administrative adjustments, administrative use permits, article 3 zoning districts, division 2 residential districts, section 23.3-7 SFR single family residential, section 23.3-8 SFTF 14 single family and two family residential, section 23.3-10 MF 20 multifamily residential, section 23.3-11 MF 30 medium density multifamily residential, and section 23.3-12 MF 40 high density multifamily residential. Article 3 zoning districts, division 3 mixed use districts, section 23.3-13 MUE mixed use east, and section 23.3-16 MUFH mixed use federal highway. Article 4 development standards, section 23.4-3 exterior lighting, section 23.4-4 fences, walls and gates, section 23.4-16 mechanical systems equipment for existing residential structures, and section 23.4-19 outdoor storage and open air operations. Article 5 supplemental regulations, section 23.5-1 signs, and section 23.5-4 historic preservation, and for providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, Scott Rodriguez, Planning and Zoning. Briefly go through these, this ordinance. This is ordinance 2024-06. This is really discussing some clarifications and some housekeeping items. There are some focus on administrative adjustments, string lights, fence height, outdoor storage, historic preservation, and, you know, like I said, some housekeeping items. The Planning and Zoning Board did discuss the definition of building lot coverage. They recommended, staff was recommending a 2-foot overhang, and they were recommending a 3-foot overhang, which I can talk about a little bit later as they discussed an alternative motion. They also discuss fence height, and I did want to mention on Exhibit O, there is going to be some strikeout, and I believe it's line 1034.
We got to do that one.
Should be on 22 if you have the packet. So what's being stricken is just the last section of that sentence, and it states "and given an opportunity to comment." And I think Andy's going to talk about a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah, so just to explain that, we had originally drafted it with the language that if a demolition permit is requested under the section that's being added here to address the Florida statutes, that you all would be notified and given an opportunity to comment. That's the same language used in some other demolition text. But as our city attorney noted, for demolitions under this Florida statute, we aren't allowed to hold up the permit in any way. And as it's written, that, you know, given an opportunity to comment can kind of be interpreted in such a way that, you know, you all would have to comment before we issue the permit, whatever. So it's basically just changing to the HRPB shall be notified. So this demolition section, since it's the most, you know, preservation specific part of this ordinance. Our legislature in 2022 or 2023 passed an amendment to the Florida statutes that basically we cannot stop demolition of non-contributing single-family residential structures that are located in special flood hazard areas. So this is an amendment to our historic preservation ordinance to stay in line with state law.
I'm glad you got to that. I had that on the comment. Thank you.
Are string lights such a big issue that it has to be addressed in, numerous places in these ordinances? I didn't realize it was such a,
I got an issue with that.
This is in reference to code enforcement requesting some changes to regulate this part, put it back in the code, if you will. It was eliminated, and I guess they're having some enforcement issues related to this. So they wanted to be, this is going to allow that to provide guidance to code and also to be a little more clear on what is allowed and what is not allowed.
What is the issue, that people leave their lights up too long or what?
That and people have white lights and getting cited. I know one neighbor that gets cited for white lights and get like,
Yes.
okay, you have them all downtown, why can't I have them? Kind of thing in the city. So it's a code issue.
That's correct.
The problem that I have with that is the wording. That's number one. The other problem I have is if we're going to allow this, you can't allow one without the other. I mean, I know it's always been an ordinance, but we don't have to go that road anymore. You got white lights. I'm gonna tell you something. I hate to get off the beaten trail of what we're doing here, but I don't know how long you guys been in the city. I've been in the city when there was black and white water fountains. I know it don't have anything to do with this, but people are sensitive now. You got to watch how we word things. Right there on J Street, on one corner was white and the other one was colored. Why can't we use the word? Can't we word it a different way?
Clear lights,
You're talking about Christmas lights.
you're talking about
Clear
holiday lights.
holiday lights.
Christmas
Right,
lights.
you're right, exactly.
Christmas lights, it's always been in the code. They have to be down within X amount of time.
Right, but they're allowing some of them to stay up.
They're allowing clear/white lights because you have a whole downtown that's lit up at night. What's good for the city should.
No, stop. Because we allow the lights to be white, that don't make it right.
Has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
and it says string of light bulb, doesn't say a color.
Okay.
Sorry, William Waters. The definition, small electric lights spaced evenly along a cable and used for decoration. String lights, also called cafe lights, may be clear or white, warm or cool in tone, and those substantially similar. I get where you're talking about, and then under the,
Can't we just go ahead? Can't we just use the word?
yeah, we could just
Strike.
strike the, and just say holiday themed lights, and that'll cover it.
There you go.
I go along with that.
There you go. All right. That's
Okay.
good. Next. Did P&Z discuss fence height? Did you say?
They did, because there was a lot of consternation about initially that it was in reference to new construction but we explained sort of after the meeting that the real issues coming up with, we're adding walls and fences on existing properties. When we have a new house, we have topo, we have all kinds of things that we can use to ascertain the appropriate height of a fence or a wall. But when its existing properties are there, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. And so we're trying to rectify a little loophole that is allowing some walls and fences to be taller than they're supposed to in comparison to what's the neighbor side who's not getting the wall and fence.
Depending on when the house was built and the elevation of the structure.
Yeah.
Compared to your neighbor's.
The presumption was that since we're in Florida, almost all the lots are all flat. Well, we have some places where that's not the case, and there's some significant difference between one and the other.
Okay.
So the wall can go in. Well,
Yeah,
the-
but it's gonna be determined by.
The average of the elevations of both sides, which
Okay.
is a definition that we have in the lot, but
Right.
it's not found in the fence section.
Because especially.
So we're trying to provide some clarity.
Yeah.
Building the new houses,
Right.
their yard is here. Neighbor's yard is here.
Right.
They have to determine the height. This guy can't just say my fence is gonna be 6 feet tall.
Exactly.
Or my walls, because his lot's already 3 feet higher than the other side, so it will be determined,
Right. Okay.
which is fine. They're just doing some housekeeping with their terminology.
Yes, thank you.
And inside that terminology, you're allowed to charge a fee. You want to charge a fee for that?
We already do.
You already do?
For a fence permit, yes.
Fence permit?
We're not charging any additional fees.
Right. Okay.
Can I ask why, section 23, 4-9, section B, where it talks about open air operations, and then subsection A, subsection B, subsection C, subsection D, why that's all been stricken?
Yeah, that was actually, that entire subsection B already had its own section. I think it's 23-4-14 maybe. So it already had its own separate thing. So we're just cutting out the repeat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions?
Mhm.
Staff, we good? All right. However y'all want to make that motion as far as agreeing with P and Z on this one, or just straightforward as it's written. Do it.
Okay, I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in ordinance 2024-06. Do we need to say something about planning and zoning with this one too?
No.
No, okay.
For this one, just so that we've got it on the record, that is with striking line 1034 and with those edits that we discussed to exhibit J line
Oh,
742 for the
right, that you just
like
added.
description.
As
Okay,
stated.
Sherry, get that.
She got it, as stated.
Yeah, as stated.
Motion second.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, Miss Attorney. Ordinance 24-07.
Ordinance number 2024-07, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, article 4 development standards, section 23.4-25 micro units, and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Okay.
Okay, micro units. This was approved, I think, at the same meeting where we had the affordable housing program approved. But in its implementation, we've had concerns raised by a number of developers that the percentage of commercial or mixed use space when a project gets a little bit bigger is more than can actually the location or the city can absorb. And so it's actually prohibited several micro unit projects from moving forward. And so two of them changed to a different type of mix, and then others had requested us to consider a lower percentage. And so what we have proposed here is that the minimum amount of mixed use space for a project is 10% of the area of the apartments or 2,500 square feet, whichever is less. And 2,500 is our threshold for the smallest use. Now, if a project wants to add more, that's perfectly fine. In the discussions with the Planning and Zoning Board, they made a recommendation that we keep this, but also add that if a micro unit project did not want to provide mixed use space, then they have to double the interior common area element space from 10% to 20%.
That makes sense, but.
And that's how it moved forward. So the numbers of units that are allowed, how they're allowed. The Planning and Zoning Board also recommended that we reduce the minimum size project from 20 units down to 10. And that seemed to be acceptable across the board from that board. So, and staff felt comfortable with that as well. It may help utilize some smaller lots that can't meet the area needed for 20 units. And again, this only happens in mixed use districts. This is not allowed in the MF 20, 30, or 40 districts because the component of the mixed use piece is happening in downtown, mixed use Dixie Highway, mixed use Federal Highway, mixed use East, which includes 10th Avenue North, 6th Avenue South, Lake and Lucerne, west of Dixie Highway, a little piece of Federal Highway, and then also mixed use west and the 2 TOD districts.
Nice.
How far downtown did that affect? Like one? That's on all on the west
Downtown
side?
zoning.
That's on the west side of
No, we're talking east side of Dixie.
East Lucerne?
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
downtown.
downtown is from the west side of Dixie, those
Right.
lots, City Hall, all the way to Gulfview on Lake and Lucerne.
So we approved this. And they wanted to get these units. What is the height limitation?
Well, depending on what the project would be, you can go as high as 4 stories and 45 feet throughout downtown. East of Federal Highway, if you provide a hotel, which could be combined with micro units, it could go to 6 stories and 65 feet. If you do an urban mixed use plan development that's either mixed use or residential, it can go as high as 56.25 feet and 5 stories, but the project area size has to be at least a half an acre.
There you go. Did you get all that?
Oh, yeah.
All right. There's a test next month.
And parking's not an issue with all these?
That's downtown.
Well, parking's already a requirement. It doesn't really, there is a parking relief for the micro units, and because they are in the mixed use districts, we're hoping that those people who live there will have lower vehicular travel. And so there is a parking reduction associated with micro units. But parking is still required.
And we think we're gonna get a lot of micro units?
I don't know. It came up under discussion, which we're going to cover under planning. There's interest in building micro units that are not necessarily affordable, but they're market rate, but they come in at a lower cost
Per
to
square
build,
foot, yeah.
and the rent is a little bit lower than the
Mhm.
standard unit, and there is interest in those.
Mhm.
But if you use the sustainable bonus program, some of the micro units are going to have to be affordable.
And then that where they would have. That would be a higher density. That'd be a higher.
Right.
Yeah, micro unit counts as 3/4 of a unit, whereas a unit counts as a unit.
So your micro unit would be minimum of,
250 square feet and no more than 750.
so a studio to a small 1 bedroom.
We do allow a 2-bedroom in a micro unit, 750. I lived in one in DC and it was fine.
Okay.
Kitchen was tiny,
That bad.
but it was 1 bedroom,
Yeah.
2 bedrooms, 1 bath, living area with a kitchen and dining combination.
I mean, most of your town sites are 640, 660 square feet. They're 1 bedroom. So just add a bedroom to that, you're at that square footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these have full kitchens?
They have to because
They
they're
have to.
considered a dwelling unit.
Yeah.
That was one thing that, and I'm not bragging, but I was at a county meeting and I guess this type of unit has been discussed as not necessarily meeting a micro unit. It was sort of like, what do you want to, they used to be called single room occupancies, but multiple occupancy units. And Miss Baker, who's the county administrator, came and hugged me. She's like, thank God someone's thinking about a small living unit that has a kitchen. And that's what this is.
Nice.
On a 50-foot lot, we can see a 65, a 58-foot building.
Pardon me?
On a 50-foot lot, 50 by 50. 50 by 50 with 2,500 square feet, right?
Well, we don't allow development on lots that small because they don't meet the minimum requirements. The smallest lot we have in the city that could be buildable is a 25 by 135 foot lot, which is around 3,700 square feet.
Okay.
But depending on where it falls in the district, it may have 3, it might have 4, but a single lot of record, either 50 or 25, is not big enough to meet 10 units.
Motion, anyone? Or more discussion?
I just have one question. When you talk about public use areas, exchanging, I guess like a public access, like it could be commercial or something like that for public use. Common areas
Mhm.
within the development. Is that something that, I guess that would be on a case by case basis, because I would think that would be something that you would want to have some type of restrictions as to where that could be located within the development.
Well, the shared common area can be located anywhere within the building, but it's accessible to all the tenants of that building or residents, because it could be condominiums. And then there is shared common area that's required outside. The mixed use requirement is theoretically accessible to the public as well as the tenant, because it can't be there, live, work, office. It has to be personal services, retail, and commercial space. So it's open to everybody.
Okay.
Have a motion, please.
I'll do it.
All right.
I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendment included in ordinance 2024-07.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got unanimous. Opposed? No. So we have unanimous. All right. Okay, any planning issues, updates, award ceremonies?
Yeah, not a planning issue. I suppose it's more of a department report, but yes, the preservation awards nominations will close, I believe, at the end of this week. We've already gotten some nominations in, and then we are working on getting the event together. It's looking like mid-May, probably May 10th. That's a Friday evening. So we'll send that out to you guys once we have that finalized.
Is that gonna be held at the library?
Yes, I think it'll be the
That's
same
easy.
spot as last time, the library meeting room. They redid it a year ago, maybe?
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah. We'll be sending you guys, instead of last year, we had a special meeting to vote on them. We're going to be just sending you guys some voting sheets, so we don't have to
Okay.
try to convene everyone again.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's what we've got from the department.
All right. We good?
Well, I don't know how many of you tuned in to the WMOTA introduction to the public Zoom meeting that happened on Monday. But WMOTA is the Weiner Museum of Decorative Arts. It's a museum that's been in existence almost 10 years and includes the vast glass, textile, and decorative arts collection of Arthur Weiner out of New York. They are putting together, collaborating with the CRA and the city, and putting together a proposal for the L&M site, which was so controversial, going on 6 years now.
Yeah.
It was very well received by the public that were in attendance. We'll have a charrette later in May to get more input from the community. I do encourage you all to attend. Their goal is to have a conceptual plan that can have a pro forma and a sheet of terms that will be part of a public-private partnership among the CRA, WMOTA, and the city by the end of August, 1st of September. And they are diligently working toward that. They are meeting with staff in the CRA every week. They have a very commendable architectural team in place, a planning entity, a facilitator. As they described it, and I won't get into all of it because it's conceptual, but the whole concept is that Mr. Weiner would like to have his museum be supported in perpetuity and be sustainable. He has a great interest in the underprivileged children who are not exposed to art or even the creation of art. They already have a collaboration with the Benziken Art Center. They have a museum in, I think I'm probably gonna get it wrong. I believe it's in Hollywood. That hasn't reopened yet, but it will open soon, and that's available to go visit. People are going to be encouraged to go. But his idea through his development company is to have enough market rate residential to spin off enough revenue to support the museum. So that portion of the project will pay taxes. It will not be subsidized by the city. And if it works out, it will have a sustainable revenue stream going forward for as long as the foreseeable future is. And so I think there was over 60 people who attended that meeting. Was very well received in terms of the concept and reaching out to the public and soliciting their input. They have hired Kathleen Kaufman, who is a historic preservation consultant who helped us write our historic preservation guidelines. So she's already quite familiar with the city. She's been out of Coral Gables. I think she's out of wherever the University of Florida is, Gainesville now. I'm having a mind break, but anyway, so I think that's really good that they've hired someone who already has familiarity with our ordinance and our rules. Plus their architectural firm has done quite a bit of historic preservation work in New York, has offices in West Palm, and I believe they have one in Miami. So though they are a firm that's been in existence for more than 100 years, I think it was, and their main office is in New York, they do have a presence in Florida. So it's very exciting.
Nice.
William, is there any indication that any of this project is going to come before our board?
The whole
Has
kit
to.
and caboodle will come before you all, whatever it might be.
That's right. All right,
It may come before you more than once.
there you go.
How do you see him?
Pardon?
How do you meet him?
Well, I have met him, but it's more a question of how they found Lake Worth Beach. They were in Dania and had a museum there, and I think some conversations they ended up having to move. Their space was taken, so they moved temporarily or in the process of moving to Hollywood. They were in negotiations with a couple of cities to relocate and create a permanent location for the museum. From what I understand, and I was there and I was listening, families spent time in Florida and came across Lake Worth Beach and says, what an interesting place. It's really quirky. It's really fun. We have collaborations already there with artists that are in the city because we do have a number of really good glass and textile decorative arts people who live here or do work and create their art at the Van Zuyten. And so they approached us and said, hey, what do you have on the burner? And they approached the CRA first. The former city manager, the mayor, and I, and Joan Oliva, the CRA director, went down and visited their museum in November. And it is really impressive that one person, and the daughter came and visited, and she's like, he's kind of a hoarder because there's a whole other collection in the Hamptons, and there's also another collection in New York with all that, but it's 15,000 pieces. There are quite a number of pieces by Dale Chihuly, and then several other, Robert Morris. He started by collecting, they're like tankards that have people's faces on them, and they're British.
Yeah.
And he was in England studying law or in graduate school, and that grew into a fascination with Staffordshire, Royal Dalton, Wedgwood, Johnson Brothers, and other British textile and China curators. And he started collecting, and then that grew into other areas of textiles and arts. What is really fascinating, they are mentoring and fostering a group out of, I don't remember the name of the country in Africa, but it's a country that was really decimated by AIDS and other afflictions. And they've created an arts community there, and some of their art is amazing because it all tells a story. And there's like a whole village, and most of it's three-dimensional. There's some of it is 2D. That has turned into creations of fabrics and textiles that are being manufactured by Hermes. There are some furniture pieces. There's 2D art, 3D art. Some of it's monumental. There's this gigantic terracotta lion that weighs, I don't know how many tons, that served as the base for, I guess, a bronze or an iron, a metal sculpture that must be probably 6 feet tall. There's a Japanese import piece that when you walk in is 9 feet tall. You could actually get into this urn and stand in it and not be seen. And it's beautifully decorated. So, and there's a library too of decorative arts books that's quite impressive. The curator is from England. She's quite impressive in her own right in displaying the art of the items and then coordinating public outreach programs and educational things, and then other private type exhibits that might come into the museum. So all in all, it's kind of mind blowing, and it would be something totally, and it's kind of an oxymoronic, but totally unique for Palm Beach County. We're going to be meeting with the Cultural Council. Yes.
Yeah.
But it would likely put Lake Worth Beach on the map for another really good reason. And we have a meeting with the Cultural Council next week to see how they may collaborate with the program, because they have an art space behind their facility. And so it's all looking far more positive, and I'm not going to jinx it, but I'm like really excited about it.
Well, congratulations and great follow-up to make
That's
that
awesome.
happen. That's really,
Well, most of the kudos need to go to Joan, and that the Wiener family is interested in investing here because it is a private investment. And the little Zoom show, I guess I call it that, is going to be available on the CRA, so you can watch it. It's only an hour. You can see the questions. Mr. Weiner gives a little introduction of how he got interested in things, and he's quite a interesting personality in of himself. We've met his daughter, not met his wife, but he gives a story about he wants to give back because his grandparents died in the Holocaust, and he ended up with his family being very successful. He's also a mixed race couple. His daughter just had, I think, maybe his first grandchild. She was here when she was pregnant, and she's quite dynamic, and the whole family seems to be bring a lot to the table just from their successes and their knowledge about the decorative arts and South Florida, and they're wanting to create a presence here versus just in New York.
Great.
Great story.
Thank you, William.
So how can I read more about this? What I look
It'll
up
be
or
on
what?
You can go on the CRA's website, and there will
Okay.
be a link to the WMOTA presentation.
Okay.
We're
Is that a word or
it's
initials?
the Weiner Museum of Decorative Arts,
Oh,
and they just call it WMOTA, WMODA. They were here for the street painting
I
festival.
was actually about to say that. Yep.
All right. Scott, you done? We're good? Elizabeth?
We've got one general public comment that was submitted.
Oh,
This is not related to any of the items. tonight.
ordinances just to make, okay. Just- There we go. And you are?
Sherry Cole, Board Secretary. And this letter is from Wanda Spiteri at 1017 North Palmway. She submitted a public comment card, and her roofer has submitted notarized documents to try and get permission to have a metal roof put on her house. She's not sure about the procedure to allow this to happen. This is her second historical home she's owned and have also refurbished each, and she's refurbished each for their need was great in updating. Electrical, rewiring, roof, AC, heat shutters, windows, all to keep the aesthetic design of the period it was built and enhance its beauty without damaging its appeal, and to keep its historical Florida vernacular home design. We didn't have any money nor the time to replace the roof with a metal roof when it was allowed by our city. In the early 1900s, homes were used on vernacular homes in Florida to help reflect the sun's energy away from the structure, and were very popular during the 1900s. Now that they have returned, for many reasons, they were more expensive than the asphalt that is now being used. I'm a retired teacher and have finally found a company that can add this to my home with quality material and the best way of installing this roof. I will keep a light original color, and have done many hours on research and interviews with A+ roofing companies. The metal roof has many advantages that I've only touched on in my comment card. I'm sorry that I'm not going before you to plead my quest, but I'm in the desire to keep our older homes and be aesthetically pleasing. Please allow me to get a permit for this metal roof. My home has only brought more beauty to the Lake Worth Beach homes, keeping its design and integrity to its history. Thanks for your consideration. But there's no case.
It's just a
for that.
comment.
It's just a
So
comment.
that's it.
Comment.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, we're good? Everybody?
So is this something that was going to come before us in a future meeting? Do we know?
I know that Yen has been working with that homeowner and her contractor. They have been made aware of the process of coming before you guys. We do not have a complete application to take it to you all yet, but potentially she could come before the board in the future.
Okay.
We are in receipt of the construction documents in furtherance of a building permit for the Gulfstream Hotel as of last Monday. And you will be likely seeing a construction fence going up shortly, but the remediation of lead and asbestos is finished. And so the project is imminently going to start.
Good. Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, so any comments? We're good? All right.